In this lesson, we're going to investigate how to use a function that returns a value. So an example I have in mind is to have a function, for example, that displays a menu. Okay, so we will start first with the function not returning any value. So the way to do this is you would declare the function in this manner, void. So that means the function that you want to use will return nothing. And let's say we have a menu, right? So we're going to call this function a menu, or you may say display menu, right? You could do something like this. Now, it's always a good idea to name your functions based on a verb, an action, okay? So I have void display menu, and notice here, just like main, I have no parameters at this stage. Again, we have another lesson coming up on how to handle parameters. At this stage, we want to know what will this do if you leave it as void or if you put something else there, okay? So let's say we have this, and let's define now this function as to what it's supposed to do. So we want this function to display some sort of a menu. Maybe something like this, cout. And then you could do something like this, /t/t, main menu. Now remember the calculator example we've done? Well, it's similar to that. So maybe this could be a calculator menu, right? And then we could have something like this, /t/t. And then we could say, all right, well, let me put an underline under this, /n. And then we're going to do two operations to choose from. So /t/t, one would be addition, right? /n. And then two, /t/t, line it up again. /t/t means give me a new tab, okay? Two, subtraction. /n, okay? And maybe the third option is simply to exit, okay? So /t/t, and 3 allows you to exit the program, okay? /n. There. Semicolon there, and we're done with this. So how would you display this menu? Now, if I compile and run this program, notice the menu does not appear. And the reason for that is we never called display menu. Okay? So we have a function dangling out there that we actually didn't use, right? We defined it. How can we use it? Well, you can go to main and call it. Now remember that display menu returns a void, so you can right away call it the way it is. Display menu. And that's how you would call it. So this would be a function call. Now let's see how that works. So let's compile and run again. And notice now the menu appears. And I'm back in main. Press any key to continue. We're executing the line system pause at this stage. So can we do more with this program, this version here, where we actually will do the addition and subtraction? Sure. So if that's what you're doing here, you're simply displaying the menu. You could do something like this. Int choice, so have some sort of a variable that will, you could set its value based on the display of this menu, okay? So maybe right after that, you could have a statement that says, enter your choice, something like this, right? And then cn choice, right? So this allows me to enter the choice, right? So if I run this program again, compile and run, let's see how this works. Notice it's waiting for me to enter a choice, right? So I am controlling the behavior of this one from within main now. So I simply use display menu to display a raw menu. No intelligence in it, nothing else other than a bunch of characters being displayed on the screen. So the intelligence is going to be managed right here. My choices will be here. Now, obviously, I can do a whole bunch of things here, right? I could do a switch statement, or I could do an if statement, right? Switch based on choice, right? And then we could open curly brace, close the curly brace, and then put our cases here. If you picked case is 1, see out. Simply, let's right now just pick, let's not do an operation. We'll just simply display we are in addition mode. Okay, so give me a new line. Okay, make sure you break out of the case. And then case 2, see out, you're in subtraction mode. Then later on, you can add more features here to do addition and subtraction. Okay? Or call some functions for addition and subtraction. Maybe we should do that. All right? So subtraction mode /n, we could do that, and then break, and then case 3, see out, goodbye. Something like this, right? And /n, semicolon, and then make sure you break. Okay, so I hope this is a good review for using a switch statement, right? And then you have the default in case you pick anything other than 1, 2, 3. See out. Invalid option, if you want to say that, or choice. /n. All right, so let's see how this behaves. Right, so we can do this right here. So compile and run. And let's pick 9. Now we know 9 is not in the list. And sure enough, you get invalid option. Now let's run it again. You don't need to compile anymore since we are running the same program. And I click 1, addition, and it will pick up addition mode. So let's run it again. And let's pick subtraction. And we're in subtraction mode. Fantastic. So what we learned from this, that you can call a function that doesn't necessarily return anything, but you're simply using it for what it's supposed to do. Let's call another function that will not return anything. We'll have void for either subtraction or addition. Aha. So now we're going to learn how to do modular programming or procedural programming. Instead of doing the subtraction and the additions right here, why don't we have functions that do these for us? And let's do one right here. So let's go ahead and do a void addition, right? And simply, it will do the operation for us right here. So for example, we could have double num1, num2. So something like this. And then we'll ask the user, so see out, enter 2 numbers to add together. And then we can enter them all at once if you want. So cin, num1, num2, or you could separate your cout cin statements for each variable, and then go ahead and display the result. Result equals, you could do the operation right here, num1 plus num2. Okay, so what else can we do? Maybe put a /n here, giving me a new line when you're done. Okay, or you could put an end L if you want. Okay, all right, so let's see how this behaves. Oh, before I do that, can we do something for subtraction? Sure. So let me copy all of this. It's going to be very similar. Okay, so I'm doing this for the sake of time. So if I were you, I would sit down and write it line for line. Okay, so this would be now not addition, but subtraction. And this time, maybe enter two numbers to subtract from each other. And result, change the operation to a minus, right? So that is what you're doing. So now notice I have two functions that return nothing. That means they're self-contained. They will do all of what they need to do right there and then. Okay, so what can I do? Well, you call them right here, just like you did when you called display menu. You're going to display what? Or you're going to call the addition. That's it. That's how you make a function call. That does not return anything. Can we do the same thing with subtraction? Absolutely. Subtraction. Make sure the name of the function matches what you define it as. And again, that is another function call. Just like we had here, this also was a function call. Now let's see how this behaves. Now obviously at this stage you need to recompile and run, or you can compile first like this, right? And then run it if you want to do it in stages. Now let's pick addition, 1. All right, so we're in addition mode. We know where that that print statement came out of, and that was within the switch statement. But at this stage, we just exited main and we're in the addition function where it's asking me to enter two numbers to add together. So 2.3 space 5.1. I'm adding these two numbers. Notice the result is 7.4. Okay, I got to run this program again. And we're going to do a subtraction this time. So 2, we're in subtraction mode. And it's going to ask, enter two numbers to subtract from each other. Okay, 3 space 1. All right, well, let's see. Result is 2. Press any key to continue, and we're done with this part. So what we've seen here is that you can have a function that returns nothing and still be usable, right? To make it usable, that means it's either a function that displays something like this, or it's self-contained where it does all of the needed operations that you need or it needs right here and then, does not need to return any result back to main for you to rehandle or reuse somewhere else. So that means that's what we mean by self-contained. So two cases, either you don't really need to do anything other than display something, or it's self-contained where your processes or your operations are only needed while you're in that function. There are situations where the result that you have needs to be reused somewhere else. So you need some sort of a return statement maybe, and you need something other than void for the addition to handle that requirement. So my next program will do that. So we're going to redo this same program here, okay, where we're going to return the results, and we're going to have our menu as well return the choice that we just did. So we're going to rewrite the same exact idea here we have, except our functions are going to return some sort of a value, okay? So you could think this as version 2 of this calculator. So let's go ahead and do this. And let's create, this will be example, what are we now? At 37.cpp. Okay. And again, introduction to functions. And the idea is still the same. in terms of lesson, returning values from a function. So let me just copy that. We're still doing the same thing. We're still applying the same idea. Okay. And then // Okay. So this time, our functions will not have void in front of them. Okay. So, all right. So let's start with the int main. Notice that main returns an integer, so it isn't void. So that means at the end, it will have a return statement where it returns an integer. That is what main, or the function main, or your controlling function, is returning. Now, who's calling main? Somebody has to call main. I am defining it here. Well, when you start your application, it's your operating system. Okay, so it's your point of entry to the program. So you must have a point of exit. Yes, you do. And that's the last statement within that function. And it does a specific job. It returns that 0 back to the operating system. The reason we have 0 is just a flag to let the operating system know, hey, everything finished according to our design. The last statement 0 is your flag that everything went fine, so no need to handle or do any special case of error handling or anything like that. Okay, so this will be the end of the program. End of program. And one other thing we want to do here is call a function called system and give it an argument, pause to hold the screen. Right? So we can actually save and then compile this file. So this will be example 37.cpp, leave it as a .cpp, and let's compile it. As you can see, everything looks good, and let's run it. And once you run it, you get a console. Okay, press any key to continue. Now is a good time to set the value here to make it a little bigger. 36 is good. Make it as big as you want. There you go. All right. So now let's go ahead and have the menu actually return an integer, which means I want, unlike what I had here, where the display menu didn't return anything, this time my display menu in this version will return whatever you pick. So that means we're going to need some more action within the display menu where we're going to interact with the user and ask the question, what is your choice? Enter your choice. So what we're doing is we're shifting the work that we did right here in main over to the function. Let this function menu do its job. And that's the point of having function. Function really is another word for a job. Let that function or let that job fully accomplish what it needs to do. Let it pick what it needs. Let it return what you want. Aha. So let's do that. Int display menu. Is that what I called it last time? So let me just make sure. Yes, I like verbs. Yes, I called it display menu. Okay. But this time, notice I have an integer. I'm going to be returning an integer when I'm done. Right. So there is going to be a return statement when I'm done with this. Just like main. So I'm going to need an integer to play with. So int choice right here. And then cout. And we could do a /t here. Main menu. /n. We can do the same thing we've done with the calculator. Or the previous version of the calculator. /t. Give me a bunch of new lines here. /n. Then go ahead and do it again. /t. 1 will be addition. /n. And then again, do the same thing for subtraction. 2, subtraction, /n. And then we're going to do the same thing for exit, /t/t, 3, exit, /n. Now, here's what I can do. While I'm still here, go ahead and display what you want the user to enter. So maybe right under it, /t, enter your choice. So notice now that our function is a little more interactive, right? So cn choice, right? So, you got to let it know. That's where you're storing it at, under choice. Now, what are we going to do with choice? Return it. Return choice. Aha. So now when we call this function, we want to make sure that in main, we have an idea what was your choice. So when you call display menu, unlike what we did here in main, notice how we called it. We simply wrote its name with a semicolon, display menu. Now we're going to do one extra step, okay? And that is you need a local variable. You can call it choice, or you can call it option, just so we don't confuse the two. However, programmatically, you could reuse the word choice. They're two separate variables. Remember when we talked about the variable scope or lifespan? So choice that we have under display menu only exists under choice. So it's not a redeclaration if I wrote here choice. Perfectly okay. So that's another advantage of local variables. You could reuse names at will, but not a good habit. Okay? Except, if they mean the same thing, but just give it a different name, so that way it's easier to troubleshoot. In the end, we know option is going to be equal to choice. But how? Call the function, but watch this, option equals. You can't say choice. You don't have access to choice in main right now. So how do you do this? Call the function, display menu. Now we have full access to, so this is the function call. So this is the secret sauce. So notice the difference now is that our local variable option will be equal to whatever you picked for choice after you call the function. Why? Because the function itself returns that value, and guess who's going to get it? Where and when did you call display menu? I called it from within main. So you're going to come back to main. All right, so that's how stacks work. We're going to see stack handling, memory issues with functions and so on in later courses when we get into more how data is managed. But at this stage, just remember one thing. When you call a function from within a function, you're going to leave the parent function, which is this one. You're going to go to a child function. But once you finish executing the last line in the child function, you're going to come back where you left off within the parent function. Okay? So now we can actually display here just quickly. You picked. And we could see what value we picked. Option. Right? So this will show us what we've picked. So that means it will prove to us that indeed, whatever you did, right? Whatever you picked should display now in main. So that's kind of the bridging between these two functions, is whatever is being returned by display menu. Now notice I said int because choice itself is an integer. So these two have to match in terms of data type. So if you're returning an integer, that would be that. For the, let's say you want to do the addition and subtraction, which I urge you to do before I actually in our next video do the full calculator, right? And I'm going to put it in also in a loop. This menu will display in a loop, so that way, if you don't want to exit, you will remain here. So our next video, I am going to go full-blown calculator, addition, subtraction, that is, but everything will be within a menu, within a loop. And we're going to have two other functions, the addition and subtraction, just like we did here. But this time, the addition and subtraction will not have the keyword void. They will actually return the result. Okay? So let's see how this works. Compile and run. All right, so if I pick 1, notice it says you picked 1. If you run it again, and if you say 2, then you pick 2. So there is a bridge between the display menu and main. Okay, so again, when you call a function that has anything but void, make sure that you have a variable, right, assigned to that function call with an equal to make sure that the option value will be equal to the returned value that function will call or will return. Okay, so on that, let's go ahead for our next video and complete this program where we will do the addition and subtraction, and we're going to put everything inside of a loop, so that way we will not exit this program until you choose 3. So it's going to be an interesting little application.